Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, and trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. Thanks for tuning into the Zelos Podcast, the show that's all about the pros behind the pros in sports. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week, Taylor Bennett is joining me as my guest. He is the assistant athletic trainer for the Seattle Mariners. And before we get underway, remember, we've got the Fascia Performance and Rehab Summit coming up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey at the end of this month, March 27th to the 28th. It's been brought to you by the Fascia Training Academy, Parisi Speed School, Alliance Orthopedics, and Perform Better. You're going to have Tom Myers from Anatomy Trains, Michelle Dalcour, Omnidirectional Training, Bobby Stroop, myself, and a whole bunch of medical professionals also coming together for 2 solid days of experiential learning, lecture, and a whole bunch more. You can go to performbetter.com to sign up now. Again, the Fascia Performance and Rehab Summit, March 27th to 28th in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Be sure to check out my website, and I got one more thing to say. And before we get underway, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder, SNYDER. Click subscribe, give us some comments, tell a few friends, enjoy the show. But man, Taylor, thanks for coming on. I know you got to you're getting ready for spring training. You're in Arizona. Things are starting to heat up, maybe not temperature-wise, but activity-wise. And I'm just always appreciative of guests putting a little time aside to have a conversation. So welcome aboard the Zelos Podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. And excited to chat and see where we end up.
Yeah, it's been a while since I spoke to somebody in the Mariners organization, Derek Cantini, who has since become a good friend. We stay in touch with each other on a regular basis. Just heard from him the other day. I know he's not with the organization anymore, but man, if you are anything like him or you're surrounded by individuals like him, you're just loving your job. What's it like being with the Mariners?
I love it. It's the only organization I've really known, and that's been my pretty much 99% of my pro ball experience. I did a couple internships with the Diamondbacks back when I was in school, which kind of set up my connections for everything going into baseball. But yeah, Mariners has been it since 2017. So kind of worked my way through and got up to the major leagues in 21. And yeah, I couldn't speak more highly of the organization, of the people. Like this organization really values character and people that do things the right way. And I'm just happy to be one of those people that they trust me to go out and do my job.
Right on. Now, you're an Arizona native, and so you would think that starting with the D-backs, you had just found gold in the mine, and you want to stay with them. But nonetheless, you're with the Mariners, which when I think about it, I'm like, well, Arizona and Florida are the two states really where you have every team come in. And so those two states probably have a whole different way of rooting for teams. And I guess what I'm saying is like once you join the Mariners, now you're Mariners through and through, I imagine.
Yeah, I still keep tabs on the D-backs. Like all my friends and my local family here are D-backs fans, and we've made a lot of trades with the Diamondbacks over the last couple of years. And so I'll have my buddy's mom or a buddy of mine will text me like, "Hey, take care of so and so," just because there's a lot of commonality in like the guys that come over here or the guys we trade over there. So they all have their AL team, which is Seattle, and then their National League team is the Diamondbacks. So I still keep tabs on what's going on with the D-backs, but yeah, I'm full bore Mariners. I love it to death. Got just some of my best friends and closest relationships in the world are through this organization. Yeah, and a lot of my friends will ask me periodically, like, "Hey, would you ever go work for the D-backs?" You know, I was like, "Well, maybe. I mean, time will tell, but like." You can't beat a summer in Seattle. I've been in Arizona in the summer a lot of years of my life, and summer in Seattle is pretty nice.
It sure is. Okay, so I'm not going to tell your story. You can tell me, but typically somebody that's going into athletic training has some good athletic background. Maybe they sustained an injury. They were really taken back by the care were provided at that time, and that maybe inspired them to follow along that path. So, how close am I to your career path?
Yeah, pretty spot on. I went into high school and was playing three sports going through like my freshman year. I'd done football, wrestling, baseball, and I found out that I had a congenital hip condition in my freshman year of high school. Caused me a lot of issues, and I spent a lot of time with the athletic trainer there at Page High, and his name's Matt Weber. He's a NATA Hall of Famer. Has done so much from like a legislative standpoint for athletic trainers in the state of Arizona and across the country. So he was my first mentor, and what a mentor to be, to just fall into my lap. And so I spent a lot of time with him. He kind of showed me the ins and the outs of stuff. And they told me, you can probably do two sports, but three might be pushing it with the way that your hip is. And so he said, well, what do you think about being a student trainer in the wintertime? That way you get a little downtime between, fall and spring sports. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, he just took me up under his wing and handed me a roll of tape and said, just start tearing this until you can't tear it anymore. That's my first lesson in athletic training. And then proceeded to just have an individual studies class with him all throughout high school every semester. And he would just give me stuff to do and ask me what it was that I wanted to learn. On top of that, I had another athletic trainer at my high school who was our anatomy teacher. And he was awesome. I found out really quickly that I really liked anatomy and I had a knack for it and just pairing up the thing that I was good at in anatomy and my love for sports. I was like, well, this is kind of easy. Sports medicine seems to be the play. So yeah, I just followed them around, kind of listened as much as I could, and that took me on to college.
Right on. I mean, if you think about it, there aren't too many other careers. Maybe I'm just being biased that form in the early years of high school. I'm sure there's some influences that students get, but it seems to me that the athletic training, maybe physical therapy, strength coaches, they all seem to stem from the high school years and then
Mhm.
they just fortify through college and university. And so, okay, so baseball was one of your primary sports,
Yep.
followed that through, went to college, university, and then how do you land a job with a major league baseball team?
So it started when I was in my undergrad program at NAU. We didn't have baseball at the college there because our dome where the football team played was like I think like 5 feet too short to have a baseball field or something like that. So they discontinued baseball in the 80s. And so the only real exposure I had to baseball as an athletic trainer, as a student anyways, was through high school baseball. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out what sport I want to do. I really like football, but I want to try out baseball because growing up, baseball was always my favorite sport. It was kind of the most low key, fit my personality the best. And to me, like going to the baseball field was just like hanging out with your buddies and having a good time. And like I really gelled with that group of people. So I reached out to our clinical coordinator at the time and just kind of threw something at the wall. And I was like, hey, what are the odds that we have like any partnerships with any of the MLB teams or that you have a contact that I can reach out to? And he's like, yeah, well, we've worked with the Diamondbacks before, so if you send me your resume and the general stuff, I can send it over and see if they're looking for interns. And sure enough, he did. And PJ Mainville, who is with the Cubs now, was the minor league medical coordinator for the Diamondbacks, and he, for some reason, like picked up my application, and I still don't know why to this day, because I'm now on the other side of like doing interviews for interns and all sorts of other stuff at times, and like I was in my first semester of undergrad. I had no knowledge base on athletic training aside from anatomy. They said, sure, like let's call this kid and we're gonna do an interview and see if he cuts the mustard, and we'll bring him out for like a week just to get a feel for what it's like. So I just remember they said yes, and I was pretty shocked. They're like, let's do an interview. And I ended up having, for a 7-day internship, I had like 5 phone interviews with the D-backs between like different minor league athletic trainers, coordinators, et cetera, strength coaches. And I'm like, man, these guys are serious about what they're doing. And it kind of gave me a pretty good introduction as to like, this is how they view their job and how serious they approach everything if they're doing this much diligence on a week-long internship. So yeah, we went for it. I can't say that I crushed it necessarily, but for some reason they still said yes, and I got my foot in the door there with the D-backs, and I didn't screw it up, is what I tell everybody. They let me come back a couple times, at which point, through that span of time, I made a lot of connections in baseball that had since, over time branched out across different teams in Major League Baseball. One of them being Jimmy Southard, who was the assistant medical coordinator at the time, who's now with the Dodgers in the same role. But when I got done with grad school and was looking for a job, he was the minor league medical coordinator for the Mariners. And I was looking for a job, and he called me up and he said, hey, like, you ready to work in pro ball or what? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, we did a quick informal interview. Talked to a couple of people that had already met through the Diamondbacks that were now with the Mariners, and the rest was history.
See, this is the epitome of how people get to where they are, and regardless of your humility and how humble you're being right now, you had this drive, you had this desire, you looked into what kind of connections you had, you didn't say no at opportunities, all of the basic tenements that or tenets that should get somebody to be along the path of success of where they want to be. So yeah, no surprise. Like you're saying, I don't know what they saw in me. When you look at the resume, they're not really looking at the resume. What they're looking at is, how did that resume land on this desk? How did this kid, it's because he wants to be here. Well, let's filter through to see if he really
Mhm.
has the true desire and the understanding of what we're asking of him, which you did. And you may not have crushed it, but you did a good enough job to leave some positive impressions. So right on. That's great. Okay. So you geek out in anatomy. How do you apply that? It sounds like an obvious question, but I'm really curious if there's some kind of nuggets here. Anatomy and baseball. Like, how do you marry those two together?
I would say, to me, like I've always had some like weird understanding of like physics principles. Maybe just because I've watched so much baseball, it just kind of makes sense. Like there's the beauty of combining the physics and the structure and putting the two together to see what the outcome ends up being, which is the
What do you
result.
mean? Tell me more.
So I would say like looking at anatomy and how things are built, right? Like we're all built similarly, everybody's a little bit different, but then just having a general understanding of like physics and biomechanics, it's like, okay, so there's only so many variables that we can have out of this situation, right? So what is the most likely outcome? And over time, you add different nuance and different layers of understanding, and then you can be a little bit more predictable, or like at least better at predicting what the most likely outcomes end up being. But the way that I look at it is really like reverse engineering. It's like, okay, this was the outcome. How did we get there? And then how do we backtrack from the start? So if we're starting at the outcome and working backwards, it's like, what was the start? What was the setup? What was the posture? What was the anatomy? And how were you positioned? and what elicited this outcome. So for me, it's like a big puzzle, um, essentially. And I'm just always like, my job to me seems like just solving puzzles all the time. And the puzzle board is the body, essentially.
Okay, anecdotally,
Hmm.
without naming names, there have been some instances where you were blown away when the puzzle was solved, when you figured out something. Give me an example of what was going on at that time.
Let's see here. I would say like the very intro to when I was a student, it's like I had all this theoretical understanding of things, but not a lot of uh, practical application. So taking theory and then getting to actually put it in practice. A lot of it was when I was in grad school because it was the first time I was ever like on my own and I got to make decisions on treatments or rehab stuff and just kind of working my way through what was in front of me. My first ever rehab was an ACL on a guy who I still say is probably the most freakish athlete I've ever worked with, and that fell in my lap too. And just seeing like how far I could push. Like it's like okay, you're here, and your protocol says that you should be here, but you're not. Why aren't you here? And then trying to figure those pieces out. Like what makes you so advanced at this particular thing when you shouldn't be. And then just like, okay, just understanding like, okay, I don't necessarily have like a run-of-the-mill human being in front of me right now. So maybe we can push a little bit. Maybe we can get creative and just see what is what is square one for you? Because square one for you or the foundation or the floor for you is not what somebody else's is. And so a lot of that stuff, like that was an instance. I would say just really looking at everything as a clean slate and seeing what that individual presented me. And a lot of it's trial and error. Like you've worked with a billion athletes and different things, and some things work for certain guys and some things don't. But over time, like once you have a really solid foundation and maybe an assessment strategy, you can start to put two and two together. Like I said before, there's only so many variables that we can work with the body. You can only go in so many different directions. So the things that pop up tend to be much more, um, let's say, patterned,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And so the big light bulb for me was identifying the patterns. Like, what am I seeing over and over again? And what do these guys do the same?
So
It's
give
like,
me an example of that because I love this. I love where you're going with it too. So, what is a pattern that emerged that you saw that is fairly common, but not across the board?
I would say, like, even recently, within the last couple of years, we would start seeing guys having, they would have like lags and elbow flexion, which for me coming up until recently, like that didn't happen. You'd get like extension lags and stuff like that. But flexion stuff was kind of weird. And so then it was like, okay, how do we fix this? And then I started kind of diving into different practitioners and their theories, like different hand therapists and like occupational therapists, which aren't necessarily in my normal purview. Just like going outside the box to try to find different resources because the resources that I had were helpful, but they weren't like resolving issues necessarily. And so I just tried to look outside the box, and then we started kind of collaborating as a staff and as well with our strength coaches to look at things a little bit differently. And then we started applying these thought process. And a lot of it was like kind of trial and error, like let's try this and see if it works. And then it worked on one guy. And then all of a sudden another guy comes in with it. I feel like every case is a way to expedite the next one that shows up. It could be like we deal with a lot of travel, right? So we get a lot of guys with low back pain. We get a lot of guys with cervical pain or like upper thoracic pain because whether it's a postural thing, we're on a plane for 4 or 5 hours, or we're in a new bed every 3 or 4 days. These same things kept popping up, and it's like, okay, well, how do we solve the most common and like low back pain and cervical pain is annoying because like sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. But once you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together, like you start seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And you just start, I call it running a play. It's like run play one on cervical pain. Cool. And 7 out of 10 times it works. And then if it doesn't work, then I have play two to run. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll focus more spinal. Maybe I'll work more on scapular mobility. Maybe I'll work more on like thoracic expansion as a means of fixing cervical issues because maybe it's not a cervical issue in the first place. Like, right? It's not necessarily
Right?
looking where they say ow. It's always looking like global. That's my goal. Typically, like first treatment, like can we fix it with a local approach? Sure. And sometimes that works, and other times it doesn't, and it doesn't resolve. And it's like, cool, well, then we're just going to go global and look above, look below, and see what we find, and then start treating. And then you're like, oh, well, that was the answer. And then the next guy comes in, and then you just zoom out immediately, and you say, oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. And obviously, everybody's set up a little bit differently, but there's again only so many options in which humans are set up, right?
Right.
From a physiologic standpoint. So you just have to be able to identify, okay, what's the starting point? Okay, this is starting point A or starting point B. If it's A, I'm going to do this. If it's B, I'm going to do this. Or I'm just going to sequence it a little differently. And more times than not, we end up at the right spot.
Right on. Yeah. The local approach is typically like symptom based. If you can throw
Hmm.
something out and it feels good and it does the job, great. But most likely not addressing the underlying
Right.
cause, just addressing the symptoms. So I love that you go global. I love that your lens has this aperture to go wide frame and almost microscopic at any given time where you go local to global and back and forth. And yeah, for me, I kind of put it, I look at almost like joint by joint as being one player on the team, and
Hmm.
everyone's got a role to play. And if somebody struggles because they're avoiding MCL strain on one knee and they don't want to take that valgus, that's going to
Hmm.
affect that internal hip rotation, which is going to be in terms of baseball and throwing. That may be what's needed to decelerate. And if that's not happening because it's trying to protect the knee, then that's going to throw more up toward the thoracic and toward the shoulder. And the person's complaining of like cervical pain. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's just like, I
Yeah.
love how you're thinking. I love
Yeah,
how that
I
is.
would
So,
say there was one thing as you were talking that I remembered from a long time ago that we used to have a lot of con ed sessions when I was in the minor leagues. We would bring in different people. We would also like kind of gather our thoughts from different courses that we had taken and then present them to the group. And we were also fortunate to have a team doctor that would come out for spring training. His name was Mark Rogers. Still works, I believe, at Virginia Tech. And he teaches in the osteopathic medicine school, works with the football team as well. And he would come out for spring training and he would do all these in-services on osteopathic techniques that I had never seen. Like I tell all the students that I end up working with or connect with and try to like, push this profession forward. It is 90% of what I learn, of what I do now, I had to learn outside of school. Like you have your basic anatomy, you have your assessment, your physiology, the basic things that you have to do to pass the test. But then if you want to be good, you have to go learn more. And that was one of those things. Like he came in and showed us something that I had never even considered. Like I didn't even know about osteopathic medicine, and come to
yeah,
find out, well, that's a big time global approach, right? And
huge.
so we had a kid come in with low back pain, couldn't stand up, etc. Um, and we had just done this class with him like one afternoon, and this kid comes in the next day. We're going through all this stuff. He's getting a little bit better. He's getting a little bit better. And then, day two rolls around. He comes back in. He's still stuck. It's not moving well. I'm doing everything I can to clear pelvis, to get core stability, to inhibit hip flexors, et cetera, et cetera. It's still not working. And I was just like, throw a Hail Mary up there. And I was like, let me see your fibular head. Like, let me see your leg. And I mobed his fibular head. I did a fib head mob on both sides. And the next day he walked in upright and said, I can go play right now. And I was like, what? Like, I doubt the fib head was the sole piece that was stuck and that was causing all these things. But it definitely was a player in the whole pathology, right? And I just was like, wait a second, what's going on here? So then I was like, I got a lot of questions.
Right? Isn't that cool? You
Hmm.
start learning all about joint coupling relationships and things
100%.
start to look a completely different way. Like I'm imagining it was proximal head of the fibula, right by the knee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then if it's jammed, he's not going to be able to extend through that knee, which is going to not encourage a posterior tilt of the pelvis and the decompression of the lower back. Like you follow those chains. I love how you're thinking, man. That is awesome.
Yeah, that was a
That
big
is
light bulb, and I was like, okay, there's
huge.
definitely something here, right? Um, so yeah, and then recently, another big piece of the problem solving portion, our head strength coach Matt Rutledge, he came over a couple years ago, and he's been doing a lot of the infrasternal angle assessment, the archetype models with like Bill Hartman and some of those guys. And I had a pretty solid background in PRI, and there's a lot of commonalities. There's also some differences there. And his way of looking at the body versus what I was doing initially, it seemed very different. And then over time, it started to kind of meld together. And we've had a lot of really good conversations, and it's changed um, some of the nuances in which I look at stuff in terms of the compression expansion models of joint relations, especially with respiration. And that's been a huge piece for me in the last couple of years because we've had a number of cases that come in and I'm running, like I said, play one or play two on a guy that normally works, and then we're getting stuck and it's not resolving, and then it's like, well, let's think about it through this lens, and then we start running that play, and then it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And now this guy's throwing 200 innings, and now this guy's catching even more, and now this guy's doing this, that, and the other, and the aches and pains that they typically had all the time aren't showing up anymore because they're having more, symmetrical balance from a, expansion and compression standpoint on the joints, right? So that's been a big eye opener as well.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of Metabolic Elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. So that makes me wonder, Taylor, like your triage protocol, your assessment kind of selection, because great, you're typically looking at joint range of motion, right? Throw them on a table, Thomas test stretch, and all these other movements to establish, do they have the range? Because if they don't have it on the table, they're most likely not going to have it standing up, right? But then you've got other elements. You're talking about respiration. So, and then we could also look at visual vestibular and the motor neurology of it all, and not to mention a whole bunch of other, I won't say silos, but viewpoints or lenses in which to assess. Like, so I'm curious, are you developing? Have you developed? Is it like, and not completely formed yet, but how do you go through your assessments, and when do you know to bring in, okay, let's check the breathing. Hey, let's check their ability to diverge and converge their eyes, or do they have some kind of restriction here? Like, what does your mind go to?
Yeah, I would say the visual and vestibular stuff is something I'm super interested in, like looking to kind of dive into a little bit more. It's not currently part of my assessment. There might be like a little bit of intuitive component to it, just off of, we all pick things up over time and notice certain things, but I wouldn't say it's like a formal understanding. It might just be an add-on here or there. I would say the majority of my assessment stems from rib cage and pelvis, from center of mass predominantly. If I want to zoom out, then I might go ground up or I'll go center of mass out. It just depends. But more times than not, the beauty of baseball, it's a repetitive sport. It's a rotational sport. You can move right, you can move left in terms of rotation, right? So again, limited options. So we can kind of eliminate certain variables and then focus more on the ones that happen every single time. But if our pelvis moves well and our rib cage is generally pliable and our spine can rotate in a decent manner, normally we don't have a ton of dysfunction. So that's usually where I start. I would say my 9 out of 10, maybe 9.9 out of 10, if a guy comes in with anything aside from like pain below the elbow, like elbow and down, I'm probably starting in the pelvis and I'm starting or in the rib cage and looking at scapular mobility as well, and looking at that joint relationship between the scapulothoracic joint, just to see what's our resting posture and what is this going to predispose us to. Like, are you, ridiculously lat dominant, and now we kind of know what happens when we have overhead athletes and their lats are, hypertonic, and how that goes from there. Or from a pelvic standpoint, everybody typically wants to be in some form of anterior pelvic tilt on one side or the other, or both. Once they start to get overloaded or tired, et cetera, et cetera, there's just general compensation patterns that you see over and over. And I've been fortunate enough. One thing that I look at, given the fact that I've been in this organization as long as I have, there's no number of guys that I've been able to work with. I'm going on year 7 with certain players. So the learning curve we're way past the learning curve on those players. It's like, cool, I know how you work, unless something crazy happened or you had a major injury or you had to have surgery, right? Like, I have a pretty good feel for what your body's going to do when it faces this stress or that stress, when you get tired, when you're playing 10 in a row, if you're underloaded, if you're overloaded, et cetera. So I can kind of streamline some stuff, but with a new player coming in or a guy that I haven't worked with a ton, like, yeah, we're going hips, we're going rib cage, and then just seeing what shows up. Table tests. I try to make it quick because nobody wants to be on the table forever, unless they just can't play. Like, if they can't play, then yeah, they're kind of willing to do whatever to be able to play. But more times than not, like, our goal is always keep guys on the field, not take them off. And so that just requires a certain level of consistency from a day-to-day standpoint. And I just try to, make it a quick cluster of, 4 or 5 quick assessments, whether it be range of motion or just postural assessment, and go from there. And that usually keeps us, as I say, like, in the guardrails. If we can stay in the guardrails, then things don't kind of go crazy. And we tend to stay healthy and play.
Brother, you are speaking my love language. If you weren't married, I might ask you out for dinner. That's just fantastic. Like, just like you say, there's only so many variations. For me, in the framework that we use in our facility, is there's 4 basic ways that the pelvis can move. Mm-hmm. First, I want to know, where does it rest in an individual's resting posture when they're standing. I don't do any table work, really, because that's beyond my scope, to be honest. I don't do manual stuff. That's for you and the PTs and so on. But where is that pelvis in space in relation to everything else? We know it can anteriorly tilt, it can posteriorly tilt, it can translate left and right. It can also laterally tilt left and right and rotate left and right. That's it. That bony structure, that's beautiful, because it doesn't get complicated if you understand that. And once you know where the resting posture is, and then you put them through these little screening movements, then you can get a better understanding of the reason why they can't go in this direction is because they're already at that end range and they don't have much to give. or they don't neurologically, they don't have the control to get there. So we need to feed it to them. And the same
Hmm.
thing for the rib cage, anterior, posteriorly tilting, lateral translation, lateral tilt and rotation. You start looking at that and you start looking at, do they have the ability to create opposition in
Right.
different planes of motion between the ribs and the pelvis? You've got spine mechanics. You've got just force production. You've got the center of their body where force emanates out from the ground up and through it. Like, what more? I mean, there's a lot more you could ask for, but from a starting point, I
Hmm.
mean, between posture and what you're just saying, freaking A. Yeah, I would ask you to marry me, but that's just wrong right now.
That's
So,
all
okay,
right.
PRI, what other things are blowing you away? Where like in the off season, which you're coming to the end of right now,
Yeah.
what have you been studying up on?
So yeah, PRI was a big foundation that I picked up with the Diamondbacks. That was a big foundational component of their theory, as well as like DNS, just
Sure.
neural development type stuff. Which now having a kid and like having taken DNS
Blows you
courses,
away, doesn't it?
you're like, holy crap, this is happening in real time, right? And on top of that, like we do PT with our daughter and they're putting her in, it's like, hey, we're gonna go in like a 4.5 months position. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're doing right now. This is cool, right? Like the application in a
Awesome.
live setting, and watching how fast they can pick things up. When like I talk about adults, it's like teaching adults how to move is way harder. Like you watch kids and they're just perfect little movement. Uh,
Yeah, there's no teaching squats to
Right.
kindergartners.
It's just built in, right? They're like, yeah, I got it. Cool, sweet. Next thing. Yeah, so that's a big one foundationally. Yeah, like I said, some of the stuff coming out that's like diverged off of PRI, and just looking at things a little bit differently in terms of where things start. So some of the stuff from Hartman, Connor Harris, Pinnacle Performance, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just kind of like my brain's always trying to marry everything. It's like just combining stuff and see where all the stuff overlaps. It's like it's cool to have like this, and all these different compartments, but ideally, like you can merge that, and that's my brain's always trying to make sense of how does this all connect, right? So that's kind of an ongoing process at all times. I don't think it'll ever stop, to be honest with you. And then from an education standpoint, it's we try to be as holistic and well-rounded as a staff as possible. So I steal a lot of stuff from my colleagues. Like um,
As you should.
we have a number of colleagues that are incredibly skilled at different practices, and I've seen those techniques work. And sometimes if I get stuck, I'll send somebody over and be like, "Hey, can you try this with this player because I'm kind of stuck? And can you look at it through your lens or apply this technique that I'm not familiar with to them?" And then I see how it works, and it's like, cool. Well, maybe let's sit down and like get into the weeds on this as to how does it work. So a lot of that drives my off season structure of like, okay, what do I want to get better at? What services do I want to be able to provide for our players? Because ideally, we don't have to send anybody anywhere because we can do everything in house. That's our goal at all times. Like, have something for everyone um, within our staff. And so I do a lot of deep diving on like neurologic and like neuromuscular stuff. And once you realize that the body is controlled by the nervous system and the neuromuscular balance there, it's a game changer because you're really more affecting inputs and outputs than you are like tissue, right? Um, and
Exactly.
so if we can train the brain or upregulate or downregulate certain things, um, it's way better than just trying to beat the crap out of tissue, right?
If you understand the strategy that the neurological system has come up with,
Yep.
man, you're so far ahead.
So that's a big piece. So I've done a ton of like dry needling stuff. Um, I went, I did a couple classes in that, and then I was offered the opportunity to do like an ultrasound guided dry needling course, and I call it sniping because it's like cool. We can shotgun this and kind of spray it around with needles. Obviously, there's a lot of theory and technique that goes into it. Like we're not just putting stuff where it doesn't need to go. There's a lot of safety considerations involved in any sort of needling practice, but
Was that
when
with
you
Sue Falzoni?
yeah, I did Sue's class. I've done a couple other like curriculums just to see differences because
Hmm.
everybody teaches a little differently. But yeah, Sue's where I got my start in kneeling. Did two courses with her, did two separate courses with another group, and then the ultrasound guided one because it's like it's cool. Like you know you're safe, you know you're in a good spot, you know what pathways and what strategies you're trying to, elicit with needles. But then if you actually see visually the where that needle's going and the response to that treatment through sonography, it's like, okay, this is a little bit different. So that just, takes it and kind of makes it even more focal. So I call it sniping. If we're going to be really specific and try to do like minimum effective dose, and if I can do it with one versus do it with five, that's the goal. Like I don't want to overload your system if I don't have to. So that's a big piece. I've done some manipulative techniques as well, just because there's always a time when somebody comes in and that might be the most indicated treatment. It's like, okay, we're going to do some sort of manipulative stuff or some mobilization type stuff. Yeah, so from the manual therapy side of things, I try to get my hand in everything. And then I've delved a lot into Allison Taylor. She's a OT that works out of Dallas. She puts a lot of content online that I just randomly came across at one point or another, and I was going through some struggles with a player with some hand stuff, hand and wrist issues, and I saw her stuff, and I just started diving into her content library, and sure enough, a lot of stuff started working, and I started applying it to different things. It's like, okay, well, obviously OT and hand therapy, we're talking elbows as well. There's a lot of application with elbows, and then we're talking shoulders. It's like, cool, well, let's look at the hip like a shoulder. A lot of commonalities, right? Some principles are kind of flipped, right? Let's look at the knee like an
Well, instead of
elbow.
a pelvis, we've
Mhm.
got the pelvis broke into two pieces called the
Right.
scapula.
Exactly. So, and then let's look at the knee like an elbow. A lot of commonalities there. Not exactly the same, but the dynamics of the joint relationships and kind of bicep tricep versus quad hammy, a lot of similarities there. So let's apply some of these principles and see how these work. And I was like, well, this is kind of a game changer. A lot of it's from like a fascial assessment strategy, and she does a lot of work with post-op patients and people's, and I've even gone as far as looking at all the scar stuff and how scar plays a role into kind of messing with or causing adaptation in the fascial system and the fascial slings and stuff like that. So
Nice.
yeah, I nerd out pretty hard on all that stuff.
Dude, I love it. I'm glad we're not in the same room right now because we would never leave because I do the same
No
thing.
doubt,
I
no
mean,
doubt.
the opposing joint relationship theories between the left elbow and the right knee, it just
Mhm.
dates back to the times we were quadrupeds, and you look at that stuff and it's just remarkable. Okay, so here's the next question, Taylor, is that you dive deep into understanding the mechanics of a person, where their restrictions are, where their structure is in space. That's going to tell you a lot in regards to their programs.
Mhm.
For instance, you have a better understanding of what soft tissue needs to be mobilized
Mhm.
via theraguns, massage guns, sticks, rollers, whatever tools that they might have at their disposal. So you can basically say, here are the targets that I want you to work on. And while you're at it, here are some mobility drills that I need you to
Mhm.
do. When it comes to strength, here's the question: how well does your insight convey over into the weight room? Like, here are the lifts that I think might benefit this player more in the position they're in right now. Typically, a kind of a long-winded thing, typically we're going to do the main lifts as the meat and potatoes, and
Mhm.
then there'll be some accessories. And there is this kind of thought that we should do everything the same from one side to the other. But when we look at it from a neuromuscular perspective, the signals are quite different. So
Sure.
how can we expect, if you're doing something unilateral or bilateral, how can we expect the outcome to be changed because the messaging system through the neuromuscular system is not collaborative. It's
Sure.
not symmetrical.
Mhm.
So where do you go with that? Do you have conversations with the strength coaches? What does it look like?
Yeah, we lean heavy on our strength coaches. We try to be. It's like it's two rooms. Obviously, there's a wall in between, but we try to eliminate that wall as much as humanly possible. And if we could just
Beautiful.
get rid of the wall completely, that would be great. But our staff, from day one of physicals all throughout the season, they'll do assessments on the strength side. We'll do our table assessments. And obviously you have your orthopedic screenings and stuff like that. So we always, as soon as everybody gets their physicals done, we're sitting down, we're talking, we're hashing out through the details of each guy, and we're going all the way down the roster. This guy has this limitation, this guy has this limitation. And we've as a staff with this group in particular, we've run through this now. This will be 3 years in a row. And we got it down to a pretty quick system where it used to take a long time to get through the entire roster. And now it's like, cool, well, we just banged out an entire roster in 3 days. And if this guy has this restriction, we know exactly what you're going to do, and you know what I'm going to do because we know each other really well. But initially, from square one, it's like, okay, this is what our assessment is, and they're teaching us what they're looking for. So that way we can already know, like, okay, if you're looking for this and you see this, this is where you're going to go. This is how you're going to program. This is your strategy for X, Y, and Z. And if we see it, we're then saying, okay, then this is what we think. So we're all trying to really speak the same language from the get-go. So that way, at any given point in time with any specific player, we know what the plan is. Now, not everybody's going to have the same program because everybody's set up a little bit different. But again, there's some
Yeah.
commonalities where you can bucket certain things where this guy likes this guy employs this guy employs this strategy or this strategy. And if that's the case, he's going to go here. This is going to be his prep routine and his programming, or vice versa with a different strategy. And so we know with their programming, exactly what's going to be handled. What I can help do in the training room to facilitate their work in the weight room. We just try to look at it as kind of a symbiotic and complementary piece where we're prepping each player daily to then go do the things that they need to go do in the weight room, which then preps them to go do what they need to do on the field, right? So it's just this flow of each group is complementing each other to ultimately benefit the outcome on the field, the performance, right? Because that's what we're all here for. And so, yeah, I love our strength guys. They crush it every day. And honestly, when it comes to the programming, yeah, if I have a really strong inclination, I might say something. But more times than not, if I walk in and I say, hey, so and so had left anterior pelvic tilt, limited IR on this side, limited ER on this side, and a right shoulder flexion limitation. We did this, and this. They know exactly what I was looking at. And then
Brilliant.
it's like you go, like I already know you're going to do the right thing. There's no questions asked. Just have at it, and then we'll circle up at the end of the day and say, hey, did this work or did this not work? And in the instance, like what I really like about our department is the collaborative component of, okay, if we're trying this out and we get in 4 or 5 days and it's not resolved, let's all sit down, let's hash it out, let's break it apart and see, like, did it work, did it not work? If it kind of worked, where did it work and where did it fail? If it didn't work at all, where did it fail? And then do we need to start over? And where are we going to start over? And how long are we going to take to wait until we determine if this was a success or if we need to try again on something else? So that's kind of our strategy for every single player, for every case that walks in the door. It's like, let's
Awesome.
give it 3 days. If we can't resolve it in 3 days, let's all sit down as a group, meet together, get our heads together as a collective group rather than a couple of individuals, and then let's get this thing knocked out.
I love you say 3 days because that's typically how long it takes the body to figure itself out.
Hmm.
And then, most of the time, if somebody comes in with a little tweaky back, we can help them. But a lot of times, just it takes a few days to sort through it.
Yep.
So you kind of get both barrels blazing there. That's nice. And the communication aspect of it all is
Mhm.
the channels that you have are fantastic. Okay, Taylor, how about this? You ready for some rapid fire questions to finish this off?
Let's go for it.
Okay, ice bath or compression boots? Which one wins on a long road trip?
The answer is, what are you feeling and why? That before I give you one answer, it's are you hanging? Is the hang because of like more of a metabolic fatigue, or is it more of a neurologically driven fatigue? If it's neurologic, I'm saying get in the ice bath and let's shock the system a little bit and press reset. And if it's like tissue's just gassed and you have a ton of metabolic buildup, then let's get the boots on and pump that crap out of there. So that would be my
Beautiful. Okay, Gatorade flavor that instantly makes you a teammate's favorite.
the boys like grape. A
All
lot.
right.
And speaking for our manager, he's a big fierce grape guy. So I'm gonna throw that plug in there. I like orange personally, but I'm open to whatever.
All right. What's the most underrated recovery tool in the dugout?
In the dugout, getting up and moving.
One stretch every baseball player should do before flights.
Couch stretch.
Nice. Best excuse you've heard for skipping mobility work?
I foam rolled.
If every player had to pick one accessory to wear daily, what should it be?
Hmm. One accessory to wear daily. If I could figure out how much they're sleeping, that'd be phenomenal. But sometimes I feel like we're snooping at times if
Sure.
we're getting their biometric data, which ultimately our goal is we just want to get you paid and have you be successful. But more times than not, yeah, they get it. If I could know how well you're sleeping, that kind of sets you up for the rest of the day.
Okay. How about the most surprising area you see restriction in ball players?
Hmm. Surprising area I see restriction. I mean, you pick it. It depends on the guy. Let's see here. Cervical.
Okay. How about your walk-up song for the training room? What would it be?
Ooh, I was just thinking about that the other day. Who was it? Oh, it was The Killers. Oh, what's the name of the song? It's at the end of the Blue Angels movie on Amazon. Oh, let me look it up and we can cut
No
it and
problem.
read it.
We'll come back
Here,
to it.
give me 2 seconds on
And
that
how
one.
about an early pregame routine? Is it going to be silent focus or loud hype?
I'm hyped. I'm trying to get them
Nice.
going. It's like, yeah, if I can, my routine is let's get the boys fired up. Let's get it going. And
Great.
then,
Okay, last one. If you could give young athletes one piece of injury prevention advice, what would it be?
hmm, one piece of injury prevention advice. Knowing enough is enough.
Oh, good. Love it. Oh man, nice job on those. That was good.
Thank you.
We'll get back to that other question later, but man, this has been great. I really appreciate it. I love your brain. I love your curiosity, your desire to solve problems and puzzles, and the tools you have in your toolbox just keep growing. So I really appreciate all that you've shared here. I definitely receive so much from every guest I have on. You're no exception. So
Well, I
thanks, man. Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
taking the time.
Thanks for letting me hang. This was an awesome conversation. I love talking all things, uh, any of these topics, and it just makes me happy in general. It's something that I'm super passionate about, and it's fun to talk with other people that have the same amount of passion.
And well, that brings this party to an end. I can't thank Taylor enough, as well as the Seattle Mariners organization, to allow this conversation to happen. Remember, we've got ourselves the Fascia Performance and Rehab Summit, March 27th, 28th at Fair Lawn, New Jersey. That's going to be through Perform Better, Parisi Speed School, the Fascia Training Academy, and Alliance Orthopedics. Go to performbetter.com. While you're there, it's not that far away. June, July, and August, the 3-day summits are coming up. I'll be presenting in Chicago in June this year, as well as my West Coast love here in Long Beach, California in July. So be sure to check out the Perform Better training summits while you're online signing up for that Fascia Performance Summit at the end of this month. And so let's hear from our sponsors just one more time. Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I gotta reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.